and welcome to H2O Stream. This is Martin reporting for H2O Global News. Today's guest, Fred Schonenberg, believes that generative AI is a way to analyze and present data. He's going to show us how this can help us overcome a number of challenges we're facing. So hello, Fred. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Yeah, so it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm Fred Schonenberg. I'm the founder of Venture Fuel. Venture Fuel is an independent consultancy. We help large organizations commercialize innovation by partnering with startups and new technologies. So we help these large multinational companies learn, test, build, and invest in the next generation of products, services, and technologies.
That's fantastic. So the problem is, at the moment, we're living in a world of big data now. Everything produces a lot of data. So what problems is this causing, and why are companies struggling to cope with it?
Yeah, I think as sensors became cheaper and cheaper, and we were able to kind of measure so many different things, there was a moment of let's measure everything. And there's a lot of validity and interesting things within that, but now we're drowning in information. Often the sensors on one part of the business don't talk to the ones on the other. And how do you make sense of them? They don't talk to the CRM, or they don't talk to whatever the data streams that the executives are using. So we've got disparate sources of data. We've got an overload of data. And so it ends up that we're not really measuring anything, or if we are, we're not measuring anything that generates actionable insights that can drive real change. So it's almost like, the wish of, I want to measure everything, and you're actually measuring nothing because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Certainly things easily become lost in the noise. So you're a big proponent of generative AI. So, I mean, how does this help companies handle data and also analyze and present it?
Yeah, generative AI is an evolution of AI, which most people have been hearing about for some time now. What's kind of breakthrough about generative AI is it's able to be more conversational. It sort of democratizes data in that it can make sense of different streams of information and humanize that, right? So it can basically, what generative essentially means is that it has the ability to learn from the data and from its analysis based on your feedback and more data. And also the ability to make decisions. So it can connect disparate sources together. And so for large companies and people tackling this sort of data overload, there's an opportunity here to better organize, better understand, and utilize this enormous amount of data that they're collecting. So I think it's the really interesting part is it also can democratize data and analytics, right? You've got a couple of experts they're kind of doing all the quants, and they're doing all their analysis and coming back and giving you reports. But what generative AI allows you to do is to ask a question. I want to understand how X and Y work together, and it comes back with an answer. Now we need to look at the biases and where the answers come from. But it takes what is normally very complex and makes it something easy for us to understand. And it can look for it can go look for new solutions in unexpected places where we just didn't have the time, the insight to just cronk through numbers and hope that we might magically find something. Now we can have generative AI go off in the background and look and try and make sense of some things and come back with some things we might not have expected.
Yeah, so I mean, also the democratization of data is certainly something that I've heard quite a lot mentioned in the AI community. So I think it's certainly a very interesting path.
Yeah.
But to move on, I mean, why do you think generative AI is important for the water industry, and what type of companies do you think it would benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I think generative AI can benefit not only every company, but I think it can benefit every employee in a lot of ways. But when I look at the water industry, I think of some of the exciting new spaces, right? Biosensors, synthetic biology. There's so much happening that's exciting in the field, but it's complex and it's nascent, right? And so it's like, okay, how do you connect those back to the core business in a way where you can find new insights, competitive advantage, unique solutions. And so I think what this does is open up those possibilities, and large companies should be trying and testing this and seeing how it makes sense. I think one of the ways to bring this to life is to look in the context of startups. So there's a company called Shape. It's SHAYP. And basically they leverage AI to deliver fully automated leak detection, right? So it's kind of beyond water consumption measurement. They're using machine learning to help organize and prioritize leaks. But if you think about that and overlay generative AI, that can take all the information and actually deliver recommendations back to technicians. Here are the leaks, but also here's how you might be able to fix them based on past performances. We're going to prioritize this one over the other one for these reasons. By the way, here's a video on how to actually repair it, simulations of how certain leaks may progress if left unattended, right? So you get a little bit of like predictive analytics, a little bit of humanization, and it just has an opportunity to do that democratization as well as look for new solutions at the same time.
Yes, that's fantastic. I mean, it's when I've been looking into it, this is a big disruptor to technology. I think it's fantastic. The same way as the internet was, even 20 years ago, nobody was quite sure where it was going, and now we've got this exploding. So yeah, for water companies, so how can they adopt generative AI, and what changes do you think they need to make to their infrastructure and to their system, maximize the potential?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my advice to water companies would be the same as what I give to all of our clients across multiple industries. First, you need to understand what's out there. What are new solutions? Scan the landscape, look to external partners that are really diving deep into this, just to understand what's possible. Get your hands into it, try it out, obviously in a very controlled way so that it doesn't have huge impact in your organization, but your eyes start to open about what's possible. And it is, to your point about the internet, it's very similar in that a lot of people go, oh, what is this? I don't know about this. I need to focus on my core business. This is too out there for me. And it's out there, it's too far out there until it's not, right? And we saw that with the internet when people didn't kind of take advantage of it. So I think you need to be not only exploring the space, but you need to be testing and seeing what's out there. And then what's really interesting is if you take that sort of learn then test approach, is that you can start to scale what works. And what works for your organization is going to be different than what works for any other industry or organization. But if you get out there and you do these sort of small tests, as you start to see results, then you can really scale it across your organization and the business. But there's a lot of ways to kind of get in early here and see what it means while mitigating risk. And once it starts to work, then you get into, how do we scale this larger? What does that look like? Whether that's building something specific to your business, whether that's partnering or buying a technology that kind of gives you that competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, certainly we've heard before, the step-by-step approach seems to be a very, very good way to implement it. Just, slowly but surely testing. That's great.
One thing I would add there, sorry to interrupt, but is what's cool is I do advocate for, sort of step by step, but I'll say what's really interesting about partnering with startups is that you get to start on third base. They're already working on this. They're already doing all the testing. They're doing all the bench work and lab work. And there's a number that are in, the water space that are trying this out and are looking for new solutions. So rather than sort of starting from scratch and going through a laborious process to get to something that's interesting, I mean, you can jump right in and really see what the potential is and then scale it quickly. So I read in some of the previous articles that you've written recently, that sometimes it takes 16 years to go from concept to ready to market for some of the technologies in the water industry. And like that needs to come down to 2 years. 3 years in order to solve the problems that are out there and in order to create real business models here that are going to work for the future. So I think generative AI is a way to really shorten that window. I think it's also an opportunity by partnering with startups that you can shorten that window within your own organization rapidly and then make the choices on what's going to work for you.
Fantastic. And that sort of leads very nicely on to my next question, because it's more about if companies, for an established company, we talked about implementing the technology, but what about the cultural impacts? What are the challenges does AI face, such as the cultural resistance and training people up? How do you overcome those?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's two challenges happening with generative AI. One is you have the challenge that's always there with new opportunities. We call it not invented here syndrome, right? You've got the smartest engineers in the world working for you. What does a startup know that they don't know, right? So you have this like resistance to anything outside of the core day-to-day people that work within the four walls. So that's a constant, no matter what technology you're looking at, that you need to overcome. But with generative AI, there is something really exciting and challenging about it, in that if you go and play with ChatGPT, which is OpenAI and Microsoft invested, I believe, is $10 billion into it. You go play with it. It's amazing. It blows your mind. You can have you can have it create a new logo for your company in seconds. You can have it tell you in the voice of Sesame Street what your website should say. And you see this and it happens in seconds. And the immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, this is too powerful, right? And you see a lot of that. And I think there should be a lot of thought about how this is used. I think there needs to be a lot of guardrails in how you use it as an organization. I would recommend right now that you should ask it stuff, not tell it stuff. But when you see the potential, boy, that's how you get people over the hump, is you get their hands on a keyboard and have them start working with this in a controlled way, in a safe way. And you say, hey, let's take a couple different things here that we're challenged with that we haven't been able to solve yet, and let's see what comes out of this. And once you start to see those wins, and once the internal people start to realize, oh my gosh, I can do my job 3 times faster, or I can now focus on the things that are most important to me, then you start getting those wins. So I think a big part of this is education, trial, and then once you see the momentum, that's where it gets really exciting, and the potential to get everybody buying into this becomes most interesting.
Yeah, I think that goes back nicely to what you said before about the fact that generative AI is very good for non-technical people. I mean, certainly someone like myself, I know nothing about computer engineering or data analysis, but it's something that is presentable and I can access it.
It's amazing. I mean, you can feed it a spreadsheet of data that somebody that's non-technical just sees random numbers that don't make sense, and ask it a question and it can feed back to you the analysis of that data. And it's incredible for somebody that does not have the technical background. It all of a sudden democratizes that information and enables you to ask further questions. You also know that it is not selling you, right? It's telling you what the data says, which is pretty interesting also.
Yeah, it's certainly a very interesting technology. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you for sharing much more with us about it. I would also like to thank the global H2O News audience for watching. And I'd say thank you very much for your time, Fred. It's been interesting speaking to you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And if anyone wants to learn more about the startups that are out there in the space and disrupting these industries and enabling Gen AI, you can just go to venturefuel.net and ping us, and we're happy to talk and share ideas and see how we can be helpful.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. So it's been very illuminating.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and great questions.
Thanks very much. Thank you for the great answers.